in many ways, we're probably quite different to lots of other companies here, but in many ways, pretty quite similar. So I will lay out some context as to kind of the problems we're trying to solve, a bit more about the UK Border Force, and kind of what we do, the variety. I'm going to lead you into the tech choices we made, and then we'll go into how we built it and how we're now running a service for the UK government. Okay, so it's a big enterprise. I've worked in big banks before. I've worked in some other private sector companies. Many of the problems are quite similar. So we've got lots of paper-based processes, lots of access databases, lots of knowledge in the organization of this is just how we do things. It's an organization that is slowly switching in, starting to use mobile technology, but pretty much underutilized. And like any big organization, and the UK government is no different, lots and lots of big legacy stuff that we just can't plumb together to do what, I guess, our organization, but also our ministers kind of want the department to do in the future. So just a bit of context of what the UK border looks like and just how big it is. So very, very simply put, we look after the immigration, so people coming into the UK, leaving the UK, looking for illicit goods, stopping bad people doing bad things to the UK, and doing that in quite a joined-up way across the security services for the UK. We have north of 5,000 ports by the time you count up all our airfields and all our marinas. We have 7,000 miles of coastline. We process 130 million passengers in the country each year, the same on the way out. And we see something in the range of 130,000 kilograms of drugs last year. And doing this, we have 8,000 officers, so medium-sized enterprise, of which 6,000 of those are frontline staff, so out in the field working in ports. And I guess one of the big differences, compared to some organizations where they just do a single thing and do that thing very well, we've got a huge variety of things that we need to do. Border Force are the front line for a number of government departments, so just trying to find a solution that does the myriad of activities we do is kind of quite hard. And London changing the organisation is also very hard. So we've got a lot of frontline officers who are out about the port, so we need to engage and get them to see that we can now build technology as good as you get at home and make it work for them. But also the people who pay me, our senior management, make sure they are getting what they need. So the frontline officers, they spend a lot of time duplicating data entry, lots of local processes at lots of different ports that have grown somewhat organically over time. IT in government has quite a patchy reputation, so they're not used to seeing new services developed at pace, and we have a bit of a reputation to rebuild there. And then from our senior management side, kind of they kind of buy it. They want the organizational agility. They've just never have seen it in practice, and trying to bridge that gap is kind of what we're trying to do and help them do what they want to do in terms of being a more data-informed organization. So I've kind of highlighted a couple of things on the slide that kind of leads us to why the tech stack that we've got. So UK government, on the one hand, we've still got lots of big legacy systems, but over the last 5 years, there's been a bit of a step change through a part of government called GDS. It's now very easy to make the case for open architecture, it's very easy to make the case for open standards, and it's very easy to make the case for considering open source software. And from, I guess, people doing that groundwork, actually choosing the tech stack that we've now got has become a lot easier. And also we have a strong preference for running in cloud. We get the economics of running stuff more cheaply and more under our control. So making that decision is kind of a bit of a foregone conclusion now. So some of the things that we wanted to do in terms of solving problems for the government were we kind of want to get the buy-in as we co-design new forms and ways of capturing data. So one of the things I've chosen things like Form.io, and we looked at a number of other technology that best met our needs, was we can co-design those forms. We've got a nice drag-and-drop UI which integrates with the rest of the stack, so we can co-design those forms with the users so they do what they want to do, and we can iterate with them. And then they just deploy on mobile and desktop. So for this group, progressive web front ends have been for a while. To try and get that land in our organization is somewhat surprising to people. Where Camunda comes along, so there's a lot of business processes which actually are embedded in spreadsheets, access databases, or just this is the way we do things, or written down in documents. not in a position that we can actually execute and do much with them. So by using Camunda, by using the modeler, again, we can co-design those business processes. And rather than it being an IT thing where we then go off and spend months implementing stuff, we can press execute, and the whole contractual thing between business and IT kind of goes away because we've agreed those business processes with them, and because we can change them and we can iterate them over time. But we are government. We do deal with lots of sensitive data, so we've done quite a lot to secure and make sure the right people can access the right bits of the system, which is where we have made a good use of Keycloak. And then we're setting this up, so we're not an island. Other bits of government have done some good things. So there's quite a popular service called GovUK Notify. We've integrated with that in the public domain, and quite a lot of back-end home office services we also kind of plug into, because we're trying to be that glue to kind of make technology and workflow effective for the rest of the organization. And we're all about data, so good data governance, good quality reference data, well-managed data models kind of underpins this, because we are trying to deliver this as a team of engineers. And also dashboard reporting, so we can kind of do that quick feedback loop. And we're winning. So we did come along to Camunda Day in London last year and spoke a bit about what we're doing as we had the first processes over the line and started to show them being used in anger. We have tried to develop stuff every couple of months with the users and write new services, and it's winning. So the tech stack we've chosen is allowing us to collaborate much more closely with our end users and co-design things. And as we get stuff into our live environment, as we get users onto it, we can show some measurable time savings. So typically, things that would take them 45 minutes to do, an hour to do, we're now building institutions that allow them to do their job in 10 minutes. So for an organization of 6,000 to 8,000 people, multiplying all the same up by 6,000, we can come up with some quite impressive stats for our senior management to keep the momentum going. But it's kind of more than just the differences we make at the front line. So by building on Camunda, by standing on business processes, we are improving our operations efficiency and just standardizing how we do things. And that then unlocks a whole bunch of business efficiency. And by having better quality data, we can improve the quality of data and improve the quality of our decision making, and I guess answer the questions we have of ministers and the public of what we do with our services. So broadly, that's the problem we're trying to solve, and that's how we've iterated on the tech choice we've had. So we'll cover a little bit now of the application architecture and what we've actually built, and then try showing you something in action. And at this point, I will hand over to Amin to talk through our application architecture. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So I'm just going to kind of go through the sort of application architecture that we've developed for the border force. At the center of all of it is the actual workflow, which is the Camunda BPMN that we use to build our business processes. We also use external tasks heavily, because one of the things that we wanted to do was keep the BPMNs separate from the actual code that sits behind the service tasks. So we've sort of extracted those out and use external tasks, which also means that we can test the code behind the scenes in isolation and do quite a lot of unit tests without actually having to deploy a workflow engine as well. And then we also use a form.io to actually build the forms and sort of integrate those with a React front end. And we also have data services that we use over REST to persist the data that's been captured using form.io. Around all of this, we use Keycloak. So Keycloak is quite embedded inside each of the services that we use. We also have customized the Camunda engine to support Keycloak, but also we've updated the Camunda engine to support our own custom authorization. Our users change their sort of roles on a day-to-day basis and teams, so we needed a mechanism that would allow us to make those changes run time so that people can shift, and we can then surface the tasks based on the teams that they're currently assigned to. We also integrate with the external services, as Richard mentioned. We use GovNotify to send notification and emails and messages, and other services, AWS services as well. For example, we use SES to send emails, secure emails as well. And like I said, form.io allows us to actually sit down with our users and actually build those drag and drop forms, and then integrate that with the BPMN So the idea really is so that we can do a lot of the stuff with our end users, find out what their needs are, build the forms and build the workflows, but not expose them to sort of the low-level code that they probably don't understand and don't really care about. So we can focus on the actual problem that we're trying to solve. And I think, unless anybody's got questions around the architecture, which I'm happy to talk about. So yeah, I think what we're now going to probably shift over to is actually talking about the sort of deployment of the application, and also hopefully we'll get a chance to do the demo. I'll pass you over to Mark.
So I'm going to go through a short demo, which hopefully will work. I say hopefully because it's going to have to be off our demos of our development system, because you can appreciate I'm not allowed to show you our live production system because that holds intelligence data on it. But I can show you the processes we're going to use for those live systems. One thing the others haven't mentioned is all of our stuff is cloud hosted. It's all running in Docker containers in Kubernetes. So everything scales up and scales down as it wants to, depending on the demand at the time. And I can go through more of that later if people want to. Let's try and hold on. Just do that. It's a bit bright so I can see it. There we go. So I should come back. That'll be in a second. Oh, it's going to start again. So when an officer starts their shift in the morning, or at any time of day, depending on what shift they're on, they will come to this screen here. It drags their details from the top out of our standard identification system. So this is actually Active Directory, backing into Keycloak, and we grab the token from there. We allow them to put any phone number in here. They have mostly all got a government phone, but doesn't mean they haven't forgotten it, left it home today, or they've left theirs at home, they need to use their colleague's phone. So they can get the notifications still. We let them override what phone number they want to use, but it will default to the last one they had at the time. They can then pick which of the couple of hundred locations or key locations for Border Force that they want to be working in, and that's again so we can send them context-based alerts about those locations, because there's no point sending a job for someone in Dover to someone in Heathrow. Once they do that, wait a second. Entertaining part of the demo. Yeah, this is the problem with using the demo system. There we go. So they get taken into this is their main daily dashboard. So as you can see, we've split into kind of bits of tasks that are already assigned to them, tasks that belong to their team, some other internal messages and bits. So for this bit, we'll go to procedures, and I will take you down to a new procedure we're doing at the moment, which is called Submit IEN, which is an intelligence notification. So for these tasks, they've got a time-bound SLA around them. So the officers themselves have to fill them in straight away, and then on the back end, the teams that deal with them have 3 hours to escalate these out to other people, or less depending on the situation. So we give them a unique reference on the front, select kind of what's been found. Is it an item? Is it a person? Is it both? Because it only can be one of those two things. We then pick, how do they come into the country? So I'll just pick area in this case. It's nice and simple. The next one's kind of irrelevant for most people. It's just whether we can share this intelligence with other parts of the government or not. There's different rules on that. And then, as you can see here, we've got drop-down lists here. These are all external to the system, so these come from reference data. That's a Postgres database backed off of an API in front of it. So we can pick any of those. Again, we can pick a location. Date pickers and all the standard features you'd expect from a nice reactive form. I won't fill out all of this, just the required bits. And all of these they'll lazy load, so the detail will appear as you want to do it. No. Less boxes. And then, again, we pick up other information from other parts of the form and resolve that to let people know who they're dealing with. Click Next. And then here we see the daily reference number, which increments as they go through the day. That's used across the whole platform, so that a piece of intelligence here might link to a piece of intelligence over there, but it also might link to an end of shift report and things like that, so we can tie back who did what and what the numbers and counts were. And we'll submit that. And while that's doing that, I shall just show you the BPMN that is working with that. So, let's hide that bit. Hopefully you can just about see that. So the form is obviously the first step, captures the information, and in a second, this will time out. We've also extended Cockpit to use Keycloak as well for its authentication. So you've got the full loop there. I come back into that process. So you'll see tasks being created, and here are that's the business data that I submitted from that form, all available to me now to do more things with. The bit that just happened that you won't have noticed, because my phone's on silent, is I instantly got a text message from our government notification system, which tells me, you've submitted the first part of the form, that's great, now you've got to submit the second part. Because the first part just had generic details about the thing, what happened, where it was. Actually, you need to go back in here, and you'll see I've got a new task waiting for me to do the next part. So we have modal sections, which don't apply to aviation. Not quite the same as C, but close. So we have a different set of questions on those, and we can just pick. And again, I won't fill all the form in, because that will really bore you. That gets sent, and then I'll come back here and explain the rest of what's going to happen. So you'll see in there the little blue dot moves from the user form. It's now sent me another text message to tell me, thank you very much for completing your intelligence report. At this point, we also branch. And let me just shrink that a little bit. And the first thing I do is save all of that in one JSON payload in the database. So we've got an archival history copy of what went and what was submitted. So if we ever need to come back to the auditors or for a legal investigation, we know that's what was there. At the same time, we also start this process here, which generates two PDFs. One with the contents of the first form, one with the contents of the second form. We have received those and have timers on both, so that should the PDF process fall over, we get 10 minutes and we'll get an alert. Also, our intelligence hub will get an alert that someone was trying to submit them some intelligence. That alert that goes to them will also tell them who was trying to submit it and their phone number. So importantly, even though they didn't get the intelligence, they know the officer that was trying to submit it, so they can give them a call and go, you just tried submitting this, can you tell us what it was? While we try and then fix what the problem was.
I just wanted to jump up and also just the fact is also that all those external, so like I said, the service tasks are all topic-based and using external tasks. So that BPMN actually has no massive code behind it. It's completely just orchestration. And obviously, all the forms that you've seen so far have all been developed with Form.io. And we effectively reference the form to the start of the process. That way, we can rapidly build those forms and attach them to a BPMN. I think Mark's going to show you an example, hopefully, of the modeler. So
Which also back like Keycloak. So this is the preview mode, and as you'll see, this center section of the form looks very much like the first page of the form we were looking at a minute ago, and we can click through that, and you'll see again it looks more similar. And what we can do, you can live edit the forms in the dev environment. So here you can see we've got the context if we pull in stuff from Keycloak. We also pull in, on several of the other forms, bits of the actual process variables from the BPMN as well, so that we take the processes variables from one form into the next form.
Sorry, that's the sort of enhancement that we've kind of done with Form.io. I'm just going to stand over here so I don't kind of, because obviously we want dynamic data. So before we render the form, we actually pre-process that form, take your user credentials and your process variables and populate that form for you. So by the time you get that form, you actually have a fully populated dynamic data form. And again, all of that linked to a business process.
And obviously the last step on that business process is we actually send, so the first few notifications go through GovNotify, our central notification system. The last step uses Amazon SES, and we send out the PDF attachments which go to the Intelligence Hub. For the dev system, I get those. And you'll see, when it's rendered in a second. Get a little bit bigger. So there's our same dynamic number that we had before. And the content of the form.
Got a few blank pages there we need to resolve.
So all the drop-down boxes are resolved as well. So whatever you select in the drop-down box comes out in the PDF, as well as any of the other content that you entered. So the Intelligence Hub see exactly what the officer put in and have the full picture.
And we're using the workflow to sort of handle the error conditions in the event that we actually can't generate a PDF. We're sort of saying we're not going to go, oh, oops, it's all broken. We're trying to handle the error conditions, notify the users that actually something's gone wrong, and we try to resolve it. The idea is that we've got the data, we can work out what the problem is, and we can resolve it without actually having to go to the user, can you submit again? But we keep the user informed that something's gone wrong, and it will be resolved as well. So again, we use the workflow to handle all of that and not have other services that maintain or manage that sort of exception handling. So, and that's the sort of the benefits of having the workflow.
Anyone got any questions at all? Yep.
How do you link the Form.io forms to a user task in BPMN?
So we basically reference the form name to the user task. And one of the things, the sort of roadmap that we're looking to do is actually, at the moment, we've got the Form.io builder and we've got the BPMN builder, and they're sort of two separate things. One of the things we want to do is actually merge them into one sort of single interface that allows you to build the workflow and then sort of pop up the Form.io builder and link those two together.
Yeah, cool.
You showed a form wizard as well, so multiple steps in one form, which I think potentially is complicated, certainly when you would use the background button, for example. How do you do this?
So this is basically managed by Form.io, and so because they're very good at building forms, and so the whole wizard stuff is actually managed internally by Form.io, so it maintains the state of what you're filling in. And then what we basically do is once you submit, we take that data and then pass it onto the workflow. And then the workflow decides what to do, what to extract, and again, using service tasks to actually extract that data.
Just a quick second. If you're going into the Q&A, we do have a microphone which we're going to hand over. So on the recording, we also will have the voices. That makes it easier for the ones who are going to watch online. Yeah, it's just coming right there. Perfect.
Okay, so who is exactly validating the data? Is it Formio server or is it Camunda? Who's validating?
So we do two types of validation. We do obviously client-side validation, so there's validation within the form itself.
No, but I mean server-side validation.
Yeah, so and then what we then do is do a server-side validation as well. But the thing is, we kind of keep the Form.io data very separate from our persistence layer, so that we can do the transformation if we needed to, and also do additional validation as well. So it's kind of two-step validation, client-side, but also on the server side. Once we get that data, we'll decompose that data and then send it off to the relevant services as well.
And you being in that context, is it Form.io server that's validating, or you have some intermediate service that does it?
Form.io does part of it, and then we also have a translation layer in between, so we can manipulate the data if we need to as well.
And then we can do additional validation for the service task as well that needs that data as well. And we deliberately did that, so we wanted to keep the Form.io data not completely tied with the back-end services, so that if we needed to change the Form.io, form builder, form stuff, then we could do that without then having to go, oh, we need to change the back-end services as well. Yeah. And it's the same principle of the workflow engine as well. If we wanted to change the workflow engine, we could do that without having a massive impact on either side of the fence, if you like.
It also allows us to keep a nice legal audit because we can see exactly then what the user entered. Even if it's gibberish, we know that's what the user entered, and then you'll see what we translated it to.
I mean, the thing about the form stuff, hopefully, oops. Let's refresh that.
Yep.
Is that it? As we actually make changes to the form, we also get a historical record of work as well, of the changes to that form, so we can always go back in history to see what it was like, and then if we wanted to, we could also restore the form back to a state that it was in there as well. So we've got the flexibility to go back in time, to resurrect a form, and attach that form to a process as well.